this is a big horse, okay? So if you had to get up now, it takes quite a bit of athleticism to do it. And unfortunately, sometimes when people are getting on horses, even not so big ones, they can pull the back of the saddle and twist the saddle as they get up. And so you've got to really put a lot of effort into getting on, you know, without disturbing your horse and pulling his back too much. And in fact, we even teach people to get on from the right and the left equally so that you don't overdo one side. But also we teach our horses to come up to a fence and let us get on, you know, something that we're standing on, or even a mounting block. So why don't you do that? Just go over to the fence and get up on it to where you feel comfortable. And I'll just be there to steady you. And then you're going to ask him to come up next to you and put his saddle right next to you where you're going to get on. Can you stand up on the fence? Kind of like loop your legs around.
Can I put one leg over it?
Yeah.
That's much easier.
Yeah. Okay. Now turn him around.
This way?
Hindquarters, yep. There. So he knows exactly what's expected of him, to come over close to you so you can get up. Now, we're just going to have you ride in this halter and lead rope because this is not about riding right now. Obviously, if you were going riding, you'd have, you know, the headgear on your horse that you wanted. But I want to show you how to feel, how your saddle feels when you're on.
It makes sense to have the valves closed now because I can see if I put my stirrup in, it would...
Yeah, it would take air out one side.
Yeah.
Okay, now put most of your weight on his withers, not on the saddle. There you go. One hand on the saddle, one hand on his withers. Okay, now settle in.
Oh, I didn't turn the stirrup on that side.
I got it for you. I sneakily did it.
Oh.
Okay, now kind of lengthen your legs down in there and tuck your tail under you a little bit and then just settle down into the saddle. And it should feel really natural and comfortable. Okay, you don't want to slouch, but your lower half should now just settle nicely into the balance point. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And your knee is supported here by this knee roll. Okay, so it just gives you that little bit of extra support, which is also great if you're jumping. And everything looks perfect. Now, when you're sitting at rest, if you try to put your hand under the saddle, you'll find it's a little bit tight. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's because the horse's back is a little bit down because he's just standing there. But now I'm going to lead him forward and I want you to feel what happens. Let go of the rope and let me just take him.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so can you feel that now?
I wouldn't have believed that.
All opens up.
Yep.
All right.
That's amazing.
So that's what you want to feel, is now that complete freedom of his shoulder.
Yeah, it's touching my hand, but it's not mashing.
There's no restriction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now if you put your fingers underneath the back of the saddle, like underneath this part, the pad as well, okay, again at rest, you're going to feel a bit of pressure there. Mm-hmm. But as soon as he starts moving, you're going to feel that it starts to give and open up. Feel that?
Yeah.
That's when you know you've got the saddle properly shimmed.
So if I did it wrong, what would it feel like?
Say that you had the horse shimmed wrong, like for his back shape, and you had too much shim in the front, the saddle would angle down here and all the pressure would be here.
So it would never get that release that I felt.
Exactly. You wouldn't feel release. It would just feel like it was digging down into the horse.
So then the reverse is true?
Mm-hmm.
If I've got too much in the back and it's driving that,
yeah, if you don't have enough shim at the front, then you're not going to be able to get your fingers under there when he moves.
Yeah. Yeah, it had that like cushiony feeling.
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting it to feel like loose, but it's still got contact.
Yeah.
But
it's not a big gap, but it's kind of a cushy space.
Yeah.
You know, that will give as the horse moves.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with where the shims are positioned, he's got all the room in the world for his scapula.
Okay.
Okay.
And is there ever the need?
And then here, like, you'll see that there's just a little bit of air in there. That's just the the edge of the pad.
Yep.
But on some saddles, like especially a little bit of a smaller one, like this is the super wide, on a smaller one you can feel the air, and you want it to kind of feel a little bit gushy, not hard like a balloon.
Okay, I can feel like in the parts where the air are, it's like when you had me roll it up and feel
Yeah.
the difference. It's not a balloon, it's the cushion.
Right.
So if I had let too much air out, what would that feel like?
You'd feel
Just
virtually nothing.
nothing.
But it's hard to let too much air out unless you're sitting there and you open the valves and stay like that, because then it'll squish all the air out.
Right, so
But the way you've saddled is just the right amount.
so is there ever a time when you're sitting up here that you would fiddle with the air?
You would only need to do that if somehow you didn't saddle right and now you feel like you're sitting on a pad rather than on your horse, because you shouldn't be able to feel the pad, you know, once you're up there. So if that was the case and you go, oh, I feel like I'm a little higher, it feels bouncy, then you can just undo the valves at the same time and just let little tiny bursts of air out, like 2 or 3 of them until you get to where you want, instead of open them up and the whole thing goes out. So it's like, and you do them at the same time, exactly the same time. So it's good to practice that, you know, in case you have to do it. And then sometimes, like if a horse is really crooked, which a lot of horses are, they've got more muscle on one side than the other, you can let more air out of one side if it still feels crooked when you're on. Usually that fixes itself while you're saddling. But if you need it a bit more out, then you just take one side and let it out until it feels level. And that actually helps a horse to use himself more and more equally and build up muscle on the side that he doesn't have it.
And would you want to like walk around a little bit first to feel that for sure, instead of just setting on and doing it?
Yeah, you'll be amazed at how quickly you learn the feel of it. Like I can tell the moment I'm on if it's right or not. But in the beginning, I used to, you know, ride around a bit and go, oh, I think it doesn't feel right, and change it. Okay. So as you get to know the pad and the feel of your horse, you very quickly become accustomed to how quickly you can.
Okay. And if I accidentally let all the air out, I would just start from the beginning again.
Yeah. In fact, you can just loosen your girth and open the valves and just wait for a minute, and it won't fill completely with air again, but it will put enough back in where you can.
Okay. And then I could imagine
function with it properly.
If you'd want to test your horse out with this noise on the ground first.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Like, you know, Parelli horses are usually not spooky at all because, you know, they've learned that nothing is frightening for them. But otherwise, it's a good idea. You know, and you don't even have to let the air out because it won't make the same amount of noise unless you're sitting on it. But you could stand next to them and mimic the sound. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Ready to ride?
I feel like I know what to do now.
Cool. When I put the saddle up, remember how I showed Yvonne how to just attach it to my stirrup there so that the girth just hangs nicely without any twist to it. And with my pad, I make sure that I store it upside down. Now, sometimes you have to just store it on the top of your saddle, so do it upside down. And because there's always some dirt and grime after you've used it, just brush off the accumulated hair, and then with a damp cloth just rub the surface of it, so that way you maintain the anti-slip properties of it. It doesn't get all clogged up with dirt and hair. The last thing is get into the good habit of storing your pad with the valves open, and that way the air is back into the air cells and it's ready for you to go saddle up again.